IPOA, Chair.
Yes.
The Independent Policing Oversight Authority, we hear it all the time. It's, thrown at us and say, okay, that's an IPOA issue. It goes back and forth. I want to start from the very beginning in terms of IPOA and its mandate. Tell us what that is for us to start with as an understanding.
Well, the history of IPOA dates back to the post-election violence in Kenya in 2007, when the police were accused of using excessive force against the demonstrators, and the Working Commission of Inquiry, which inquired into the post-election violence, recommended a civilian oversight on the police. Then we had the Justice Ransley Commission, which again looked into the police structure, recommending for improvement in the independence of the Commissioner of Police, and also emphasized the need for a civilian oversight on the police force. And so, after the new constitution was enacted, we had Article 244 of the Constitution, which requires a civilian oversight on the police operations in Kenya. So that is the context of IPOA. It was put in place to ensure that members of the public who have a complaint against the police from murder, killing with the use of firearms, to complaints against harassment, extortion, bribery, sexual assault, failing to act on a complaint filed by a citizen. So all this is the mandate of IPOA. IPOA's job is to receive complaints against members of the police force, and also to receive complaints from members of the police force against their seniors, usually on matters of promotion, on transfers, and other administrative high-handedness of the bosses. So we look at both sides, basically.
Okay. How has IPOA, I don't know what period of time you want to give it, but how has IPOA then been able to handle some of these matters that you raise over the last, 3
IPOA was established in by an act of parliament, IPOA Act 2011. The first the first commission was established in 2014, and they were in place, and they helped in setting up the secretariat, the structure of the commission, of the board. We are now the third board, so it's about 14 years old as an institution, but it's still very young. It's supposed to oversight a police service. Remember, it was used to be called the Kenya Police Force, but under the new constitution, it was replaced with Kenya Police Service.
Yes.
To emphasize the service aspect of the police. And there are over 120,000 police officers across the country, in every county. But IPOA staff is 284 who are meant to provide that oversight in terms of inspection, monitoring, investigations, and oversight. And it's just 14 years old. And the Kenya Police Force is more than 130 years old. So we really have got a very big challenge in terms of manpower and the coverage of the country. But that's where we are now. And we despite these constraints, I have some figures for you. And my board was established was appointed in December last year.
Yes.
Okay. So we are just about 4 months old. So you will excuse me if I have to rely on data given to me by the secretariat, not of my head.
Okay.
Now the summary of the cases at 1st December, 6,081 case files concluded, 1,000 files forwarded to ODPP, Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. 267 cases are pending before court. These are IPOA-led investigations which have been approved by the DPP for prosecution, and they are now in court. And this range from murder, manslaughter, theft, and sexual assault, and physical assault, and many other misconduct of the police. And out of these 207, 106 cases were concluded in court, and 37 police officers have so far been convicted in a court of law, and they are serving jail term. Yes.
So, Issack, you talk about the number of police officers vis-a-vis the staff at the commission, and then comes forth the number of cases that you're handling and the backlog that then does exist. So, in terms of the numbers that you're working on, in terms of the backlog that does exist, how is the commission, how is IPOA rather, working to ensure that these cases are dispensed with faster and that justice is served?
Well, we have to use what we have. And the truth is that our current investigation team, the investigation is the core function of IPOA. You lodge a complaint, then we have to investigate. Send up someone to the police station, talk to the officers there, talk to the people who have the complaint, gather evidence. That kind of thing. So you need investigators. And again, it's a 650. Staff establishment, we only have 77.
Okay.
And so you have complaints against police in all the counties in the country. And we use online cases. People can report any complaint through our online our toll-free number. We have got 8 regional officers, again, to try and reach the people, but we want to expand more to at least half of the counties in Kenya. For those who are not close to us, we allow them to write the complaint to us. They can send us by email, by writing, or physically visit our regional officers. And then we deploy our teams to go and investigate.
Okay.
But this takes time and effort and resources.
What kind of cases are brought against police to IPOA? What are the kinds of issues that are presented?
So this is a summary of the nature of complaints against a policeman by members of the public. Threat to life, police unethical conduct, extortion, bribery, corruption. Police in action. Someone goes to complain to a police station, they don't take any action, they just tell him to keep on coming back. There's no fuel for the car. All manner of complaints against police for inaction. And then harassment, detention of exhibits after case is concluded. In some cases, we even have policemen who have detained cash bail, for example. You go to court, you go to police station, you are arrested, you put the cash bail, and when you come back, you don't get the money. And that actually is a complaint against the police. Death of individuals in police custody. Contempt of court orders. And administrative issues, like, in the detention facilities, lack of food or toilet facilities, those kind of things. Yeah.
Okay. So what is done about them? And how long does it take for these cases to actually then be paid attention to?
How it happens that a member of the public will usually complain, or a family member of the person who is affected, or a friend will inform IPOA through its official lines, the toll-free number, and through email or even through letters. Sometimes when the matter is a matter of public interest and it is carried in the mainstream media, we take action on our own motion. So we go and now start investigating as IPOA on these issues. Sometimes when death occurs in the police cells, the police also inform IPOA. They are required by law to inform IPOA on every death in the hands of the police, whether done by them or quote-unquote suicide in a detention facility.
Okay.
Yes.
So IPOA essentially works in an oversight capacity, but for the people.
Yes.
For the people.
Yes.
So if they
and not only for the people, and also
even
for
the police
yes.
themselves, which they are people.
Yes.
So it's okay. So how long does it take if CT were to write a letter today and say, what happened to you, CT? Somebody harassed you? Somebody kept your cash bill? Okay, somebody kept your cash bill in the police station, and we write to IPOA today and say, for goodness sake, this case is over. My money has not been found via officer XXX. How does IPOA then sort out that particular issue? Because it's a simple thing, get the money, give it back, hold the person responsible. But how long would that take?
That should take 24 hours.
Does it?
Yes, I mean it should be.
Does it?
And when IPOA comes into the picture, it does, but not always. In fact, we now have police complaining that they are unable to work because of IPOA.
What does that mean?
Because IPOA is seen as an irritant by the police. You know, that we are always there to undermine them, to look for their bad aspect. Although we also work for them because from the last 14 years, I think IPOA has made so many recommendations on their housing, on their medical, on their mental health. And actually, the Police Service Commission has responded to our recommendations in terms of providing counselors to all the police commanders regions, providing AIE holders to the OCPD, in terms of the housing of the policemen, and also in terms of streamlining the promotion and the transfers, which are a big problem in the police force. So, but coming back to your question, yes, we are also there for the public. And the public, ideally, the police should be able to resolve complaints like that. When, for example, the OCS or the investigating officer is withholding, like, as you said, a cash bail, CT can go to the OCPD to complain. And the OCPD can, of course, reprimand the officer and tell him to give back the money. He can also come to IPOA, and once we write to the IPOA, to the OCS, that is done immediately. But you see, this is maladministration and inaction by a police or by a public office. So actually, there's also this body called the Ombudsman.
Yes.
The Commission on Administrative Justice. They deal with the maladministration and lack of a public office or public officer failing to conduct his work properly. So actually that you will have a choice of either coming to IPOA or going to CAJ. Yeah.
So Issack, we talk about IPOA being the oversight body for the public and the police themselves.
Yeah.
But here we're talking about you conducting investigations on a body that is supposed to also conduct investigations and pretty much just ensure that justice is done. How easy is it for you to do these cases and ensure that investigations are done right and that justice comes to Kenyans at the least time possible?
You know, in my previous life, I was the chairman of the Electoral Commission, and I thought dealing with the politicians was difficult. But I think dealing with policemen is even worse. It's even more difficult. And my team, my investigators, what they say is that there is a lot of reluctance by the police to open up and allow for investigations. For example, you will want to have maybe there was a demonstration and somebody was shot and somebody was injured, and you want to have a copy of the OB. You also want the duty register, which has got the staff who are the policemen who are deployed. You also want to see the movement of arms register. You know, information which you require to be able to conduct investigations. And this is available at the police station. The OCS can give it out. But they say, no, you must go and write to the IG in Nairobi to get those kind of information. So it's a delaying tactic. And we have been very strict on that. We have asked the IG to stop that kind of, and even give a signal to all of them that they are required to cooperate with the IPOA at the police station. The other thing is that, you are investigating their own. And you are not investigating a public, you are investigating a police officer, whether he's a rank officer or a non-rank. And there's always that temptation of, they call it the blue code of silence. Again, there's no, unless it is something which was so bad there's a public interest in it, and the media has covered it. They will give you information because you will hear from other officers about what happened. But sometimes, more often than not, there's a blue code of silence, which is a culture in the police force, and it's not only unique to Kenya.
So if that happens,
it's unique to all police stations across the world.
Sure, but then we also see a system whereby we also see instances whereby a code of conduct is based on a system of being able to uphold the law, regardless of what happens, whether there's the code of silence or not. So everybody seems to have started on that premise that we are doing the right thing regardless. How do you then, as an authority, work through that? If you're not able to break this code of silence, if you're not able to have people cooperate unless you now go for an external party to write a letter or to have some kind of intervention, would you say then that the authority's mandate is being met if there's so many obstacles on the way, like what you're saying?
No, these are just some of the challenges that we face in doing investigations, and it's not across all the counties in the country or all the police stations. Another problem that we face is also the contamination of a scene of crime. When it involves policemen, again, you find that once we come on board, already the scene has been tampered with, and so again that's another issue.
By whom,
by the
police?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you are investigating them. So this is always a challenge among our investigators that face, not across every scene, but
it's a challenge worth you noting. So it's something that's significant. So, but I have to ask you, sorry, Chair, that if a scene of an investigation is tampered with, and this has a direct impact on what somebody may have come forward with a complaint, how do you deal with that? It's important for you to have mentioned it, so it must be something that's significant. Who's tampering with these scenes, and does it seem like they're tampering with them intentionally?
Yes. Okay. That is once we establish that, of course, is another offence, tampering with the scene of crime. But if you look at the IG, and the police leadership now, there is an acceptance, I would say, of trying to reform the police, and we are all working together to make sure the police is professional and maintains the highest level of discipline. And then that way we have more faith and confidence of the public in the police force. And so we have to work through the leadership. The IG, I think, has come out very clearly to be very open to reforms, to even making sure that we use technology in policing in terms of automating the instant traffic fines, in terms of automating the OB, in terms of automating the P3. And we have even gone as far as to recommend that they have body cameras on the police officers, and also we put CCTV cameras at reporting office and the detention centers. So there's a lot of reforms which are going on, and to professionalize the police force, and the majority of the police are very good. So these are bad apples that are actually spoiling their name.
There's always been the talk of political interference in just day-to-day police work, that the police may be willing to take their work seriously and do what they are mandated to do, but politicians come into. Is this something that IPOA has experienced, has come across, and how true is that allegation?
I think it is a reality of police being encouraged or pressurized or unduly influenced to do certain things for politicians or for a political cause. But if you remember, if you saw yesterday, I issued a statement after I saw the governor of Isiolo almost slapping the OCS in Isiolo, and he was actually implementing a court order. They were doing an eviction notice, and the police were there to provide security, and he was chased out of that place by the governor. So it is that's one aspect of interference, because they were doing a lawful order and they were evicting their court order. And so we come out very strongly against that. But the actual people who are supposed to defend the police and deal with their work is the employer, who is the National Police Service Commission. Yes.
Isaac, there's a question that has been asked here by one Patrick. I wrote a complaint later against the police harassment that I endured in 2019, but my case went cold. For how long should I wait for justice? He's actually even putting the case number and whatnot that is in there. That's a question to respond to. But then again, there is also the matter of... you've just handled... you've just mentioned something to do with court orders. The police officer who was effecting a court order in parts of the northeastern. But then again, we also... Same last week, we saw an instant where a police officer was served with a court order and refused to implement that court order. How do you deal with such matters?
Court orders, I think, as a constitutional, as a democracy, which upholds the rule of law, I think court orders have to be obeyed and implemented, unless they have been revoked or overturned. And so, yes, that's also a misconduct on the part of the officer in not complying with the court order. Yes.
So how do you deal with this gentleman's issue where he's made a complaint and it's been waiting
since 2019?
Since 2019.
That is
we are in 2025.
What kind of complaint is it?
He talks about harassment. Actually, it even has a case number.
Has he filed it in a
he has a case number.
Yeah, it has a case number. He complained in IPOA.
Oh, it's IPOA. It has got a... Give me this.
Okay.
I will deal with it after I leave this interview. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Patrick, I mean, that's interesting. So Patrick, your case from 2019, the chair has said that he will deal with that. So, I mean, he'll get the details of that. So that will be interesting to see how that is actually followed through. I want us to go to a break. The chair of IPOA is here with us this morning, Ahmed Issack. But as we go to the break, I want to ask this question. There is the general perception that IPOA essentially just window dresses some of these issues, that it is toothless in terms of an authority, that there's only so much it can do. Sadly, things like that seems to then, give that argument wings.
The name.
What would you say would be the major problem that cannot then see? Because when we hear IPOA, people want to see that police are doing something wrong, they pay for the wrong that they do. And if they don't see enough of that, IPOA is toothless. How would you respond to that?
I think the data I gave you will not agree with that. I mean, over 3,000 cases investigated, over 30,000 complaints received, the same policemen convicted and in jail. I don't think you can...
have these been as a result of IPOA's intervention?
Yes, of course, obviously. IPOA has no powers to arrest, so we rely on the policemen themselves to arrest themselves. It is very interesting because here is a policeman who has been accused by a member of the public with either death or a rape. Or defilement, like we had in Embu. And then we investigate the cases, but you want to arrest the person now and take him to court for taking plea. And you can't arrest him because he's, unlike other public officers, they don't step aside. Once you charge them, they still carry the gun and they do their work. So the challenge was to have them arrested, taken to court, but we are relying on the IG and the police command to issue the necessary support. But we have also been trying to get the High Court to register the complaint, then issue a summons. That way, it becomes a court order for them to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we say that we are looking into a time where every other complaint has been against police, especially when we are looking at killing, I mean, let's just call it as it is. Killing, harassment, beating, torture. The questions are, what exactly is being done? Because those things are immediate in nature, are they not? When somebody is killed, it happens right now. Somebody is shot, it's immediate. And in the full glare of everybody else. Let's take the protest that took place in June last year. And that there were people who saw particular police officers take aim and take fire at Kenyans. Kenyans died. And people, through social media today, you don't have to hide. It comes out very quickly. People were able to identify, even took pictures. What holds IPOA from acting on such things just as quickly as the death was meted out on these individuals?
As you have said, those were very public interest matters. The public was alive to the killing and to the protest by the members of the public. And and even IPOA actually also monitors all police operations once they have been informed, including public order management, which is the protests. We also monitor police recruitment and other police operations generally. And so even during those protests, we had IPOA officers. Some of them were actually injured also, and they even ate the tear gas, like the members of the public. But so they were there. And on the spot, we started the investigations, and you see, we have to get the documentation in terms of getting the movement of firearms register, the stock that was used, the officers who are deployed where, when. You also have to ask for the operation order of that particular day. And according to my information that I have, this happened before we came on board, but the CEO was very kind to give me this information. We have already two officers have been charged. Remember, IPOA is not the only one which investigates these kinds of complaints. We also have the internal affairs unit of the police.
Yes.
We also have the DCI. They also do investigations, and DCI actually sends the files to the DPP. Sometimes you will find the DPP getting two files, one from IPOA, one from DCI on the same matter. And so then the OTPP will then approve the charges. So on our part, IPOA-led cases, there are two who are in court. There's one particular case officer whose matter is pending before the DPP for approval. We have closed the two internally. We have also closed 4 as per directive from the ODPP, and 6 are under review, while 42 are under active investigations.
Isaac, one would beg the question. Let's go back to June 25th last year. And the investigation process, one would assume that there is ballistics that would be taken, the movement of guns, as you're saying. Does IPOA have access to the ballistics report from, say, the officers who were there, the bullets that were recovered during autopsy from these individuals, to help in investigations? And if that is the route that the investigation takes, how is it for you to get this information? Because then when we talk about ballistics, we talk about DCI giving this information.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very good question. Yes, we also have our own officers who are trained in ballistics. We have even an equipment, the necessary equipment, forensic equipment, and laboratory in our own office. And these were donation from our donors. But you are right, when a public order management event happens and the police fire, you need to collect those cartridges, the used bullets, and then link it to the gun from which it was fired from, and then to the person who was carrying that gun.
Yes.
That way you're able to trace back the information.
Yeah.
Like I said, contamination of crimes, of scene of crime happens. Sometimes you may not be able to get those spent cartridges. And other thing is that, remember, our laboratory, the national laboratory, is at DCI. There was this big building with all the, you know about it. And there's been a complaint by members of the public and others that sometimes the ballistics and forensic which goes there is not professionally handled or independently handled, and that we actually need a more independent national forensic laboratory, and that only should serve the DCI and the police. But for us, we don't have the capacity to have our own forensic laboratory, apart from just having the minimal where you can keep the blood samples, the bullets which are taken from the body of the deceased, and this is something which I think is a challenge which is going on forward.
Okay.
So how do we get IPOA to work together with the IAU and DCI in concluding these cases? Because if you're saying it is difficult for you to get this information, how then would all these investigative agencies just work together in ensuring that justice is solved? Because it's a concern.
I think sometimes the IAU is used to, IAU should just be dealing very small, minor disciplinary cases. But for the major criminal conduct, it should be left to the IPOA, I think. We are trying to recommend in the new law amendment that let's separate the roles very clearly between IAU, which is an internal body which falls under the IG and is appointed by the IG. So it's actually just a police mechanism. It's an auditor, internal auditor within the police force. But for serious criminal conduct like murder or assault or other crimes by the police officers, it should be done by the IPOA. Because even the DCI, they still, quote-unquote, potential conflict of interest, because they are also part of the police service. And so I think it's an area where we are asking Parliament and the executive to support IPOA in having exclusive control on the conduct of criminal cases.
Is that a conversation that is ongoing, if you had talked about, there's a lot of political innuendo around the authority, and then now going further to say, well, you know what, give us exclusive access when it comes to criminal investigations around police officers. Do you think that is something that they'll be able to release their control over?
It is an ongoing conversation. As you are aware, there's a task force, which is a working group, which is always there, working group on police reforms. It has been there for the last, I think, 20 years. It's going on. And we are members of the technical team. And there's actually a proposal to amend some of the laws, Public Order Act, the Police Force Act, Police Service Act, and IPOA, to try and align and remove all overlaps. And actually, to answer your question, we think the concept of civilian police oversight over the police is a very important function of our democracy. As a matter of fact, we have other countries like Zambia, Malawi, and Sierra Leone coming to benchmark and study on how Kenya is doing this particular area.
It's doing what?
It's setting up civilian police oversight. They're coming to, because they also want to set up their own. And we copied ours from South Africa. South Africa has got one of the best, I think, civilian oversight body in Africa. And so it's a growing concern. It's a conversation going around even among the African continent in different countries. So we should be actually making sure that we resource IPOA, we give it enough power to do its work. And as a matter of fact, we are also recommending extension of the powers of IPOA to cover not only the police, but to cover the Kenya Wildlife Service, the Kenya Forestry Service, because when they're also using guns, they're also armed. But when somebody is killed in the game parks or the national reserves,
or if they disappear, for
example, like
Brian Odhiambo, we can call his name.
There's no mechanism to hold them account. So again, we are making that kind of authority to have a complete. And during public order management, during protests, apart from the police, even the prisons are sometimes incorporated into the police force, and they to get public order. And we are saying that even then, because they are conducting the work of police, they should also be investigated.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was saying that currently there is no oversight body
for prison,
for all these other entities, none whatsoever. No. Okay. When you look at the problems that has been spoken of or have been spoken of as being some issues that serving police officers face and which sometimes hinders them from doing their work, have these been catalogued and understood If so, what is it that is being done to ensure that they are addressed?
For the police officers?
Police officers.
Yes. I think, thank you. It's a very important question. I think one which we cannot always ignore, because we always assume the police are the bad guys, and that, but they have also a lot of mental health problems. During our studies, I was reading some of the studies. They say that apart this blue on blue violence is also high. Police officers killing their superiors, their own or themselves, and this is all about mental health difficulties in life. And I think even Kwame said before he left office, I think they conducted they deployed psychologists, psychiatrists to interview all the police officers, and he said 2,000 of them are unfit to serve because of mental health. And now the National Police Service Commission has deployed counselors, psychologists to all the regions to help in the mental health of the officers. I think the other issue is, of course, matters of welfare, their housing, their pay, and even the way they are transferred, and sometimes the promotion, which are unfair. You see someone who has served for more than 20 years getting overlooked, and somebody who has just come, maybe some few again being given the promotion. These are all, they build up into a problem. And sadly, if this is not checked, the public is going to suffer because there will be transferred aggression.
Isaac, when I have a matter and I'm coming to report the same to IPOA, or I'm a witness in this matter, I need some assurances that I will be taken care of, that under the law I am safe.
Yes.
So in terms of witnesses being protected under IPOA, how is that? Because then again, there is fear from the public that even if I report this matter, I'm not assured of my security and safety.
Yeah, that is a very good question too. Obviously, when you are dealing with police, these are not ordinary accused persons. These are police officers who have got their own, who are armed, and they serve in the service. And so members of the public who come to complain, I think, have every right and expectation to be granted support. So sometimes we anonymize their names during investigations. Number two, the courts are also, if a witness is particularly scared or worried about his safety, the court can allow him to give evidence behind a curtain. And the worst case is to go to the Witness Protection Agency, WPA, which is another body whose job it is to give witnesses who are people who are witnesses in a very serious cases, and then they are given that protection. And maybe out of town, maybe they're kept somewhere else, even out of the country, if need be.
How long should these things take, in your opinion? When we look at some of these cases, I mean, because it's not your normal court case. It goes beyond that. How long would it be? How long would be acceptable, in your opinion?
I think because they involve members of the police service, officers of the nation, and it has a direct impact on the faith, the trust, and confidence of the people in the force and also in the government and the country. I think they should be done as soon as possible, in the shortest time possible. Maybe within 6 months, we should have everything wrapped up. Unfortunately, when we go through like you see, I've given you some data. There are so many files which are still with the DPP. He has not given the go-ahead to prosecute people. But we have finished investigations and they are lying with him.
Why? Do you know why?
I don't know. Maybe you have to ask him that question when he comes here next.
But you do ask. One would assume that IPOA goes before the DPP and says, we have presented this case to you a year ago,
Yes.
6 months ago. We've wrapped up investigations. All things point to a particular direction. We've not heard any way forward. Surely IPOA asks questions.
I met him last year. He was among the first people I paid a courtesy call
Yes.
on. And when I went there for the courtesy call, I went with me the list of the cases which are pending in his office.
Yes.
And we asked him to fast track them and make a decision. One or the other. Either you approve, or you say cover A, return back and say we want you to cover A, B, C, D.
Yes.
Then you can do the file. So we have done that, and we are hoping that, and we agreed to send. He actually said he's going to set up a specific team to work on our police cases, because police matters are also matters of public interest, and so we are hoping that will stop.
Yeah.
The other problem is the police cases or cases involving the policemen go through the normal court process. So you have a judge who is listening to commercial cases, family matters, other cases, then the police one.
Yes.
Also, so you join the queue, like other cases.
So you're advocating for a separate court?
We had requested for a separate court, like the anti-corruption court. But we were told if we do that, I think some of the police commanders were not happy with that, by the way.
Of course not.
Why?
I mean, you are saying we are so bad that we have to get a special court for us. That was the kind of complaint I had. But the Chief Justice, to her credit, I think understood the gravity of the matter, and she said, first and foremost, she said you are part of. We shall make you part of the CUC, the Court Users Committee, in every region. And number two, she said we are going to give instructions to all our judges and the magistrates to prioritize police cases involving police, because they are matters of public interest. So we're hoping that going forward, we will have less congestion and less time wasted in court. Yeah.
There is the brick and mortar, there's the pen and paper office bureaucracy. We know how that is. But then also, Bonacha, you have to agree that there is the way things are on the ground. What public perception is, really does matter. And also what public perception is formed by people's experiences. What people experience with the police, and that's not to say that every egg in the basket is bad, but what people experience with the police comes from the point that they feel they can get away with it and nothing will ever be done about it. Would you disabuse IPOA from that notion to say that, police can't go ahead doing whatever they want because there is somebody who's going to check them and make sure that something is done? Can you firmly stand on that?
Yes, I can guarantee you that. Having been the chair now for the 5th month, and having studied the cases that we have, and I've gone to all the 8 regions in the country. I've met with the police commanders, the intelligence people, our own staff in the region, and other civil society groups who are in all our regions. I think everyone knows now that the police have there are very clear accountability mechanisms against the police. I think the police of yesteryears are gone. When you hear them complaining that IPOA is almost, it's like they are working with their hands tied behind their back, according to them, or some of them. And I've had this told to me on my face by police commanders. Because we come, and then once something happens, we look like we are looking to fix them. Yet it's a matter of public concern. It's a matter of public interest. And I can assure you, IPOA is in a very bad place, between a rock and a hard place. Because you have this perception that we are part of the police force. We are just a toothless bullock. We are just covering up for the police. And then on the other hand, you have police commanders telling people that we cannot work because of IPOA. I mean, so I think we're doing well if we have complaints from both of them.
But it seems this element of intolerance regarding inquiries and regarding investigation is something one hears of very often. I want to go back to the training. When police officers are trained, are there units in their curriculum that enable them to understand just this very simple concept of accountability beyond the people within that same service? That the public also have that very right to determine and to ask for accountability? Does their curriculum cater for such an understanding?
No, it doesn't. In fact, I had this conversation with officers in Mombasa on Friday. We had a forum there. And they said some of them, since they left Kiganjo, they have never gone back to any training session. They left and they have been working for 15 years, for even 20 years. No refresher course even. So now we come here and talk about human rights-led investigations or human rights-led policing of the country. We also have to change the curriculum and make sure that they understand we're in a new dispensation. They're no longer the police force. They're a police service. You get me?
But, Chairman, many government entities ensure that their people are trained, retrained. It's a process.
Yes.
Who has hindered this process from taking place among the police, given the enormity of the actual responsibility that they have?
I don't know. I don't know why they don't do that. I think the main training is Kiganjo.
Full stop.
Of course, they also have other training centers like the one on the border guards, anti-terrorism, the bomb squad. But those are specialized units.
Yes.
But overall, I think what I'm saying that maybe we need to have a refresher courses for some of them, and for them to understand we are now in a new dispensation. We have to go and use policing through the lens of human rights.
I mean,
that's all.
How do you have a training curriculum that doesn't align to the Constitution?
And I think as well a training curriculum that keeps on changing, because then again we live in a time where technologies should be key and parcel of investigations as well.
Yes.
You know, in law, we have what CPD, continuous professional development.
Yes.
You are required to go for every year at least some courses.
Yes.
And get 5 points.
Yes.
Before you are given a license to practice law. I think we should have the same for police officers.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be a suggestion.
No, it should not
should be mandatory, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be mandated in the law. I agree.
It seems that there's still a lot to wade through in terms of what's going to happen. I mean, like you said, you've been there for a short time to be able to see then how things can then progress and change, and then for the authority to actually be recognized as an authority on these oversight matters. But we want to thank you, Bonache, for being here with us this morning as we've looked at some of these matters today. Important for us to do so, and it will be important to see how they all develop into the future. Asante sana.
Thank you very
Ahmed
much.
Issack Hassan is the chairman of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority and has been our guest this hour. Thank you so much for doing so.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.